So then people, welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Podcast. We're in today for episode 135. Now, this will be a solo episode. Our last episode we was joined by Ben Hawksworth. That was sort of majorly business focused, but there was a lot of take-homes and had some really good feedback on that. So today's episode, we're mainly sort of going to go through a bit of a catch-up. Now, most of the traffic for the podcast, I guess you could say, is going to come from social media. So it will sort of come from Instagram, TikTok, that type of stuff. So for the past sort of couple of weeks, I have kind of been a bit MIA on social media. Obviously, sort of area-wise, there was definitely a bug going around. So it was really weird. I had a properly good run for this year. Now, those that know that me and sleep don't get along very well. I don't really sleep that much. So with that, obviously, will come a weaker immune system. In the past, I used to get ill. We're talking every 2 to 3 weeks. Honestly, I was absolutely shocked. I was just in bed all the time. And this year it's actually been really good, despite how sort of intense the day-to-day routine can get. And then all of a sudden, back end of the year, I just get completely wiped out. So for the past sort of 2-3 weeks leading up to Christmas, it just was, training was broken, everything that I'd sort of picked up momentum-wise, there was a lot of inconsistency, and it just, because I had nothing to post, nothing to share, because I was simply recovering, it obviously resulted in sort of, missing in action approach to social media. But ultimately, as I sort of spoke about briefly yesterday, was that I didn't really miss it, if that makes sense. It's very easy to sort of see life through an Instagram story, or, you can't take a certain photo or do a certain thing because it's not the right lighting, or you've got to think, is it aligned with what you need to be pushing forwards on social media? And there's all these types of sort of considerations you've got to think before making a decision. When you take time away from social media, it was nice to sort of relieve that perspective, and obviously as I got rid of that perspective, allowed me to take on other perspectives, finding enjoyment in other things, generally just sort of taking time away from certain ideologies and certain routines that I would usually follow. So whilst I was ill and absolutely broken, as always in any situation, there was a lot of positives to take away from it. So in today's episode, we're mainly sort of going to go through a bit of a catch-up. So I want to give you the rundown for 2023, sort of the motives that I have, and then obviously we'll go into some actual take-homes, so something that you guys can listen to this episode and actually make sure that you can actually apply, and there's something of value in this episode. The motives for 2023 as well, I just think you guys know that the podcast is by far the best social media that we have. We built a community, the authenticity is there. I feel like I can be myself with you guys, and it just means that whenever we've got a message, an idea, something that I'm feeling in the moment, I can literally just speak my mind, and I just feel like everything just comes together a lot more better. So I would hope that on your end, you can obviously learn from this, and the valuable take-homes that you do get, it's easier to apply because it's spoken, again, more authentic. I have no idea what happened to my words there. But yeah, I guess obviously catch-up wise, nothing really has changed. Obviously we had the illness, but really sort of since we got back from Miami, which was back in October now, it was mainly just focused on the new direction of training. So it was more so focused on, yes, still physique development, but overall self-development, achieving the best self, achieving sort of peak masculinity, I guess you could say, sort of ensuring that you are the best version of yourself. For me, and sort of with the Ascension project, all of that went far beyond just getting bigger delts or just getting abs for summer. So ideally, the sort of redirection that we took was overall development. So this included combat, this included physical fitness, testing the limits of your mental strength, your physical strength. So we have a lot more running, we've got a lot more cycling, a lot more endurance-based activities that we do on the weekends now. There's all sorts of different sort of new habits that I've implemented into my routine that have really sort of benefited me as a person. So, something as simple as just running. I remember when I did my first 5K, it was about a week or two after I got back. I couldn't even finish the first 5K. I had to literally run some, walk some, because I'd never done everything before this had just been cutting, bulking, or at least attempting to do so. Because again, a lot of what I do is always going to be business-based, because obviously Legacy Fitness Training, the Ascension project, it's an extension of me as an individual. So everything that I do is always going to be majorly business-related and linked to that. So I thought in order to succeed, grow, develop, rise of ranks, impact people, I just thought you had to be a bodybuilder. I just thought that's the way that it was, you walk the walk and so forth, you step on stage, you get clients, you help people, and it was just like that. But when we look into things, when you assess what it is that you're actually passionate about, the problems that you want to solve, the way that you want to impact people, goes far beyond just competing. So the Ascension project and the redirection that I took was really a good way to sort of just realign myself, actually understand my others. You know, as always, if you want to understand others, you must first understand yourself. So it was really good to sort of identify what it is that I want to achieve, the different ways in which I can progress. And as well as that, because of the redirection I took, it gave me different ways to actually progress and hit new goals. You know, it was more than just hitting a PB on deadlifts. It was more than just, feeling a good connection on delts that day, because now I can, hit a 5k in a new time. I can learn new footwork drills for boxing. I can, develop a new skill set. There's so many different ways now that I can progress, and it just allows me to sort of keep that flame alive, so to say. We're often taught that, sort of like be robotic with the process, switch off, and just sort of get on with it. And there is a big aspect of that I do believe to be true, but I think that you also have to enjoy what you do as well. A lot of us watching this, we're all going to be grown adults, we're all grown men. I don't know about you guys, but if someone told me to do something that I didn't want to do, I'm not going to do it. And if by some reason I had to do it, I would do it with the most minimal effort possible. So with that being said, I'm not just going to do something just because for the sake of it, just to do it because I feel like I have to. I have to enjoy the things that I do. It's why I coach. It's why I progress in things that I do. It's why I pursue the things that I do, because the vision that I have, those things bring me joy. It's what I want to pursue. It's what I want to develop, and it's what I want to grow in. So that was sort of like the realignment that we're at. And then obviously you can imagine we picked up all that momentum, made all that progress, and then just like that, the illness, it just wiped us out. And I feel like because everything was so like I came back, it was almost like a realisation, so to say, sort of as what had always been there. But we picked up so much momentum, we went so full in because there was so much passion involved. And then the illness hit, and it just sort of brought back a lot of bad habits like procrastination, literally just sitting in bed because I had to rest. There was nothing for me really to do. We lost a lot of that momentum, and it just sort of triggered like a domino effect of just negative downfall. So now obviously we can sort of get back on track. Today, for example, time's currently 9:37. I've already run his first 5k, meals down, coffee's in, we've read a book. That already to me is a flying start today. I can't really ask for more than that. So that right now means that approach my day, I can be productive, I can get everything planned that I need to get done. Just make sure that mindset-wise and perspective-wise, I'm in the best possible position. So sort of going into 2023, it's the first podcast of the year, first day of the year. I know a lot of people not necessarily listening to this. I know you guys are built different like me, but there's a lot of people around you that are going to be hungover, that are going to be resting, they're going to be groggy. We're not obviously like that, so I wanted to make sure that going into the new year, we've got something, we've got clarity, we've got direction, and we know where we want to go. So for me, it's really just sort of continuing the mission from 2022. I'll be honest, I didn't take over the world. I didn't achieve world status. I didn't achieve the vision that I want to have set. So with that in mind, the job's not done. So we just keep working. I'd love to be able to say that I've got all these crazy goals set, but really it's just the same as last year, but we just go in harder. We just go in more aggressive. I think that the more that you change things consistently, I think a lot of people, when something doesn't work, they're quick to change the goal, and they're quick to just completely change direction and take a new course as they are to fix, and to just simply keep going as to why they are where they need to be. So for me, a lot of it's just, staying committed to the vision, making sure that the Ascension project is as powerful and impactful as it can be. We're not going to get there just by doing what we're doing. We need to be doing more. We need to be helping more. We need to be, developing a better service, achieving better results. All of that stuff is still going to remain prominent throughout 2023, just with the same work ethic, just going a little bit harder, and mainly looking for weak areas, looking for areas as to why did 2022 not go the way that it was meant to be? Could I have done more? I'm always thinking I could have done more. You guys know me, but for me, it's finding out what I can be better at, finding out what I can develop in. And there were a lot of situations last year where I had to learn lessons. I had to sort of sometimes take a step back in order to take two forwards. So understanding those sort of setbacks, being open-minded enough to sort of understand that, right, we need to work, we need to do more, and we need to actually progress. That sort of just open-mindedness to sort of be your own biggest critic, it allowed me to grow and it allowed me to develop. And going into 2023, it's really just about carrying that on. Already a lot of just keeping up momentum, and it's very, very easy to sort of keep this. When the things are good, it's good, but that first sniff of bad, that first sniff of, being ill, or for example, right now, you might even be able to hear it if it's raining. Me and rain do not get along. Me and bad weather, absolutely hate it. I would love to just be on a beach right now, or be anywhere where there's sun and I can just be warm. But that right there would just sort of trigger, oh, it's raining, I'll just chill all day, I'll just sit and do nothing. So it's little stuff like that, just sort of paying attention, right, this is a potential downfall of mine. I'm going to understand that, I'm going to be aware of when it's happening, I'm going to be aware of, what's going on around me, but it doesn't align with the vision. It's not what needs to be done today, it's not on today's list, it's not on today's priorities, so I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to sort of push past it and just stay committed to that. Having that level of open-mindedness and being aware of your weaknesses to actually continue to grow and develop, it's really going to put you in a position of power for sort of, not the new year, because I feel like, again, it's very, very easy to sort of just say, right, well, today's January, so I'm now going to start. We don't want to get into that, new year, new me bullshit. But what we do want to do is sort of just focus on continuing. Just, you've got your goals set, you've got your direction set, you just need to stay committed to the focus. So I guess, like I say, that was a very bland and dragged out version of my 2023, but I at least hope that you can understand where my sort of head's at with that and why I said the things that I said, because it does make sense, and it just allows me to make sure that we're not going after anything new, we're just continuing the same vision, doubling down on the work ethic, and just where we need to work more, we will work more. But for the value part, the take-home part, I'm sure there's been a couple already, but for 2023, it's always easy to sort of, say, these are the things that you don't want to do. Stop doing this, this is toxic, or don't do this. I sort of want to flip it on its head and give you habits that you do want to take into the new year, that you do want to take into your next stage of life. I think we'll stop saying new year and we'll start saying stages of life, because life moves in stages. There are certain stages that can't be rushed, certain stages will take longer than others, but I feel like you need to understand that you will move into a new stage of life. I'm moving into a new stage. I'm moving into a new level, so to say. I think that gamifying life itself and gamifying your journey and your vision is a really, really good way to find enjoyment, to find purpose, and bring out that aggressive and competitive side that you need to be a better man. I think that that's a really good way to do it. So I guess with habits that you do want to take into it, open-mindedness has to be at the top there. The reason why I say open-mindedness, the reason why open with that, I guess you could say, is because it allows you to interpret situations in more than one perspective. I find that you can get close-minded people, but I feel like the best way to describe it, and you'll probably know a couple of people when I actually explain it, the amount of one-dimensional people that I've came across, not just last year, but even just that I can think of in my lifetime, is absurd. And when I say one-dimensional, I don't just mean sort of like stupid or dumb. I mean that when something happens, when they're in a certain situation, they're that one-dimensional, they can only understand their perspective. If they're, I'm sure you've seen that illusion, might actually be, it's not so much stoic, but it's more just a motivational quote, I guess you could say. There's an image of two people and they're facing at opposite ends, and there's some beams running across. And on one side of the view, you can see 3 points. It's like an illusion. And on the other side of the view, the line's changing, you can see 4 points of the beams. And both of the people are arguing, saying, no, it's 3 points, and the other person's saying it's 4 points. And this whole sort of one-dimensional person that you're going to come across, they're that so sort of conformed within their own perspective that they're completely incapable of seeing the bigger picture, of seeing things from different perspectives. And I see them fizzle out, I see them struggle, I see them encounter problems that are just ridiculously easy to overcome if you just took a step out of your own perspective. And it's almost like you'll find that these people are often very selfish in the not positive way, in the sense that they will do things only for themselves. They will do things that only benefit them, and they're quite, you'll find that they often indulge in toxic behaviours, comparing to others, tearing others down, anything that they can do to further push their agenda of their one-dimensional perspective. And the second you can sort of shift away from that, I know a lot of you guys listening to this aren't going to fit that criteria of a one-dimensional person. You're obviously at a lot higher calibre of that in regards to individuals, but if you can at least understand that and commit to that shift of being open-minded, it allows you to sort of escape that one-dimensional perspective and more take on a three-dimensional, a multi-dimensional perspective. The reason why this is so important is because there's going to be situations, you could be listening to this, you could have a net worth of 7-8 figures, you could have businesses that are doing numbers through the roof, you could have impacted thousands of people. You could also be in a position like myself, or potentially just starting out where I started, where you haven't done those kind of numbers or that kind of growth. But regardless of who you are and where you're starting, there's still going to be situations that aren't going to work out in your favour. There's still going to be a lot of situations where you've sort of got a bad hand of cards, if that makes sense. And if you can learn and commit to being open-minded, what you'll find is that you can still turn that situation, not necessarily into a positive, but at least into a lesson, where something has happened and you've been able to take away a piece of information, a lesson, so that when that situation presents itself again, you can turn it into a win. So it's almost like you've got, a perceived bad situation, a perceived situation where it's not in your favour. You're not necessarily going to win in that situation. You may win. It's the idea that you can be open-minded and sort of take that multi-dimensional perspective and ensure that when that thing happens again, for example, it could be a financial lesson, it could be a fitness lesson in the gym, for example, not applying progressive overload, not exercising safely, not warming up, could be anything at all, so that when that thing does happen again, you've got that lesson, you've got that new agenda that you can deploy and think, right, this has happened before, I learnt this last time, so here's how I'm going to approach it this time. That little shift right there, that tiny tweak, will literally put you levels and levels above the way you're currently at. I mean, in regards to those one-dimensional people, they're going to be left for dead, they're going to get dusted. So just that sort of tweaking open-mindedness is so important that you carry on and pursue. And if you're doing already, commit yourself more. If you're not doing it, I immediately sort of push you to start following that. If you can sort of think, right, this is happening, but this is my current perspective, but I wonder what it looks like from the other side. If someone else was on the other side of the situation, or even just to the right of me, what would they be seeing? What would they be thinking, and how would they interpret it? And so often as well, this is something that I'll often approach with certain situations. So I'm where I am right now. I'm not where I need to be. I have a vision, I have a version of myself that I'm sort of working towards. I might not necessarily get there in the end, but it's the fact that I'm always chasing and working towards him. That's what matters. So what I'll often do in certain situations is, what would the best version of myself do in this situation? The Josh Clark that's got, the watches, the Benzes, the stress-free lifestyle, the lifestyle where he's impacted thousands, the coaching business is thriving, the businesses are thriving. What would that version of Josh do? And just by me doing that, I'm not only sort of approaching it in my current perspective, I'm approaching it in the perspective of myself that will allow me to, be the best version of myself. So what is the version of Josh doing that I need to be right now? How would he approach the situation? And it's just little tweaks like that, just giving yourself that little edge, that little shift that will allow you to approach situations in the best way possible. And I think another sort of habit to take into, 2023 is aggressiveness. You've only got to look on social media. Like, you could literally pause this podcast right now, scroll on social media, and there are so many posts that are like, and it's not necessarily, I know a lot of us watching this will sort of follow a lot more of like the self-development, sort of Stoics, Andrew Tate, stuff like that, so we don't really see too much of it, but you've only got to sort of take a step out of, like, for example, if you've got a missus, watch her when she's scrolling on her phone, and just see for a second how much content there is that sort of pushes, have a self-care day, have, it's raining today, take that day off, or you've been going too hard, make sure you have some time off. There's so much content, there's a clear agenda that's being pushed that pushes us to take the easy route, to take the day off. And I think that if you can take aggressiveness into 2023, an actual relentless pursuit in your goals and your vision, not necessarily my goals, I have my vision, but I want you to understand and develop your vision. If you can be aggressive with that, and sort of think, right, this is what Seth is pushing, I'm going to say a massive fuck you to that and be aggressive to that, my vision and what you want to achieve, that right there is going to give you so much of a head start on your competition and almost a head start on yourself. Again, if we're chasing those versions of ourselves, that high caliber status of a man that we want to become and that we need to become, you're going to give yourself a head start on achieving those goals because you're just being aggressive. You're not stepping on the brakes or going full on acceleration, thinking, right, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to achieve, this is the status I need, I'm going to go after it and no one's going to stop me. And I think that when you have that aggressive side of you, you'll almost attract people that respect that and people that actually promote that and want you to do better. And it's a big sort of understanding of your environment and its importance that will allow you to truly level up on that. I've been surrounded by a lot of different people in my lifetime, being surrounded by people that used to sort of position themselves where they were above me, and eventually the more that I spent time in that environment, the more that I believed them, and it was terrible for my sort of self-esteem and my mindset. I've also been around people that, enlightened me to be who I am today, to be the, person that works hard, that sort of sets levels and sets pace on myself and sort of, has that relentless work ethic that will allow me to be better, that will allow me to be the best version of myself. And the progress that I've made in both of those scenarios and both of those environments has been completely different. I would probably, the version that I am now, speaking into this podcast right now, as opposed to where I was sort of like through lockdown and the back end of lockdown, are completely different. I'm going to do a podcast on sort of like male development and sort of like the not the type of man that you can be, because I'm still developing and sort of I'm not where I need to be myself. I'm not high status or anything like that, but the versions of different sort of types of men, like you've sort of got, betas, sigmas, alphas. There's loads of different types of man that you can be, but I've been the worst type and I've been the currently developing into the best type. So I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and it'd be good to do a podcast on sort of the way that I used to be with sort of, it will mainly be female dominant, if that makes sense. So where that you speak to females, the way you should act around females, the sort of the almost like the laws of attraction, so to say. If you read The Art of Seduction, I can't remember the author's name, really, really good book. We'll be covering a lot of that, but that'll definitely be an interesting podcast, so to say. But yeah, I guess as well, obviously, as we've covered sort of aggressiveness, you have to have aggressiveness into what direction? Be aggressive with what? Be aggressive why? So I guess the final point I would like to cover on this is just clarity. I've spent a lot of this podcast going over my goals, what it is that I'm achieving, my vision that I keep referencing. You need to have your vision. You need to be clear on what it is that you want to achieve. You need to be clear on why it is that you want to achieve that. And you'll notice earlier on in the podcast, I will approach situations with what does the best version of Josh, the most powerful version of Josh, how would he approach the situation? You need to understand that what does the best version of you look like? And when you achieve these goals, when you sit in that car, that Range Rover, that Lamborghini, and you've got that Rolex on, that AP on, and you've got that family, you've got that business. When you have those things, when you envision those things, what does it feel like to have them? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel powerful? Does it make you feel encouraged to do more? Does it make you feel, does it sort of tune into that aggressive side? Does it make you want to get 2 Lambos, another business, another startup? How does it make you feel? And then when you can sort of envision those feelings of what it feels like to have those things, that's when you'll find that you've got that work ethic to continue to do more. Because as we mentioned, nobody's going to work hard. You can't deploy all of these take-homes that I've given you if you don't have a reason to do it, because you're not just going to do it for the sake of it. Yes, you could start today and just be thinking, oh, well, it's a new year, I'll start today strong. There will be that sort of New Year stint of motivation, but we both know that it's going to wear off, because as you sort of shift into the next stage, it's not going to be motivation that's going to get you to the next stage. It's going to be discipline. It's going to be an aggressive work ethic. Above all, it's going to be clarity. So start thinking what it is. What do you want to achieve? Why do you want to achieve it? And when you have those things, how's that going to make you feel? So we're going to wrap the podcast episode up there. Solos generally are never too long. I like to keep them short and sweet. We had a good catch up. You guys got an insight into my life and how things have been going. And of course, we covered some good habits to take into 2023. So we'll round it up there. I'll see you guys for the next episode.